My name is Charlotte Bennett. I'm 34 years old, and for most of my life, I believed family was something you endured, not something you questioned. I thought loyalty meant showing up, no matter how many times people disappointed you. I thought love meant giving, until there was nothing left. I was wrong. The moment I realized it happened at my niece's 8th birthday party, my mother slapped my daughter's hand. Not hard enough to leave a bruise, hard enough to leave something worse. A memory. Lily had only touched the cake topper. A glitter-covered unicorn standing on top of a pink birthday cake. She looked fascinated by it. Like it was magical. Like she was still young enough to believe magical things existed. Then my mother smacked her hand away and leaned close enough for only a few people to hear. "This isn't for you," she hissed. Then she added the words that changed everything. "You don't belong in this family." The room went silent. My sister Vanessa looked away. Her husband suddenly became very interested in his plate. My aunt pretended not to hear. Even little Mia froze. Nobody said a word. Not one. What hurt wasn't the slap. It was the silence afterward. The acceptance. The familiarity. Like everyone in that room had already decided my daughter deserved less. Lily didn't cry. She just stood there staring at her grandmother. Confused. Embarrassed. Almost as if part of her expected it. That realization nearly broke me. Because maybe she did expect it. Maybe she'd been noticing things for years. The way Grandma always bought bigger presents for Mia. The way family photos somehow positioned Lily at the edge. The way every achievement she celebrated somehow became less important than someone else's. I felt something inside me go very still. I walked across the room, took Lily's hand, looked directly at my mother. Then I said 4 words. "The money stops today." Nobody moved. Nobody blinked. But every face changed. Vanessa's smile disappeared instantly. My mother's fork slipped from her fingers. Even my uncle looked up, because they all knew exactly what I meant. There was no misunderstanding, no confusion. For 5 years I had quietly funded most of their lives. The mortgage on the house my mother lived in. Me. Vanessa's car payments. Me. The grocery card my mother used every week. Me. Emergency loans. Holiday expenses. Medical bills. Always me. I never demanded gratitude. I just wanted basic respect. But respect never came. Only expectations. I had spent weeks preparing for this moment. Weeks. Closing accounts. Canceling automatic transfers. Removing my name from obligations. Untangling finances so carefully, nobody noticed. That morning the final documents had been signed. Everything was already done. They simply didn't know it yet. I looked at my mother. For a second, I thought she might apologize. Instead, she looked annoyed. As if Lily had somehow caused a scene. That was all I needed to see. I picked up my daughter, walked out the front door, and never looked back. The first phone call arrived before dinner. I ignored it. Then another. Then another. Texts followed. First from Vanessa. Then from my mother. At first, they sounded concerned. "Is Lily okay? Can we talk? Please don't do anything dramatic." Dramatic. I laughed when I read that. My daughter gets humiliated in front of an entire room of relatives, and I was the dramatic one. The next morning, the messages changed. Did the grocery transfer fail? The mortgage account isn't showing a payment. Charlotte, call me. Still no apology. Still no mention of Lily. Only money. 3 years earlier, that realization might have crushed me. Now it only confirmed what I'd suspected. Lily sat beside me on the couch, watching cartoons, while I scrolled through the messages. Every few minutes she'd lean against my shoulder, not saying anything, just checking I was still there. I wrapped an arm around her. That silent little gesture meant more than anything my family had said in years. The following day, Vanessa showed up at my office. I spotted her near the elevators. Perfect makeup, perfect smile, perfect performance. The same one she'd been giving her entire life. She waved. I walked right past her. 2 hours later, a text arrived. "How could you do this to Mom?" Not Lily. Not what happened. Not the party. Mom. I stared at the screen. Then another message appeared. "You're hurting Mia too." That one almost made me angry enough to respond. Almost. Because somehow, they always found a way to make themselves the victims. Lily gets humiliated. I become the problem. The pattern was exhausting. 3 days passed. My mother still hadn't called to apologize. Not once. Then Friday arrived. And so did reality. Her utilities were disconnected. That afternoon, my phone rang. I answered. For the first time all week, she sounded nervous. There was a strained laugh in her voice, like she still believed this was a misunderstanding. Charlotte, sweetheart, there must be some mistake. No. Silence. Then I heard her breathing. Slow. Uneven. There isn't? No. Another silence. Then the line went dead. By Saturday, I learned Vanessa had borrowed money from several friends. Apparently, she was telling everyone there had been a banking issue, a temporary delay, a paperwork problem, anything except the truth. She didn't know I'd also liquidated an investment account I'd quietly established for her years earlier. Money intended for Mia's future education. Money I had earned. Money now secured in a trust under Lily's name. Not because I was vindictive, because I was finally choosing my daughter. For once. Sunday brought more questions from relatives. Everyone wanted to know what was happening. Nobody wanted to know why. And that told me everything. Then, Tuesday night came. The knock at my door. The moment that changed everything again. It was almost 9 o'clock. Lily was telling me about a book she'd borrowed from school. I was washing dishes. Then came the knock. Steady. Certain. Not loud. Not hesitant. Lily stopped talking. For some reason, she looked toward the front door before I did. A strange feeling settled in my stomach. I dried my hands, walked across the house, opened the door, and found Mia standing alone on my porch. Mia stood on my porch wearing an oversized gray hoodie, her arms wrapped tightly around herself despite the warm evening air. For a moment, neither of us spoke. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, emotionally, like something inside her had cracked. I stepped aside and quietly said, "Come in." She walked into the house without asking permission, without taking off her shoes, without looking around. She stopped in the middle of my living room and stared at the floor. I waited. Eventually, she whispered, "Mom told me not to come." My heart tightened. There was more. I could see it in her face. Children always carried more truth than adults realized. You just had to be willing to listen. Mia swallowed hard. Then the words started coming. Slowly at first, then faster. Like a dam breaking. She said I wasn't supposed to be like Lily. I stayed silent. She said Lily is too loud. A pause. Too needy. Another pause. Too much trouble. Mia's eyes filled with tears. But Lily's nice. The simplicity of that statement nearly broke me. Children saw things adults spent years trying to hide. She wasn't talking about favoritism. She wasn't talking about family politics. She was talking about kindness. And she couldn't understand why kindness was being punished. I sat beside her, still saying nothing, giving her room, giving her permission. After a few moments, she continued. She told me that after the birthday party, her mother became furious. Not screaming, not throwing things. Cold, much colder. The kind of anger that made a house feel unsafe. Mia said she cried because Lily had left. She cried because she'd seen what happened. She cried because nobody stopped it. For that, Vanessa grounded her, took away her tablet, sent her to her room, told her she was being dramatic. The same word they'd always used for me. That was when I realized something terrifying. This wasn't only happening to Lily. Mia was living inside it too, just from a different angle. A few minutes later, I called Lily into the room. The second she saw Mia, her entire face lit up. Neither girl spoke. They simply ran to each other and hugged. A long hug. The kind children give when nobody has taught them to hide their feelings yet. Then they disappeared into Lily's bedroom. For the first time in days, I heard laughter. Real laughter. Not forced. Not nervous. Just two girls happy to see each other. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. Vanessa. I answered. Is Mia there? Yes. No thank you. No concern. No relief. Instead, she immediately snapped. You're poisoning her too. I stared at the phone. There it was again. The line she'd drawn years ago. Us. And them. Lily and I had always been them. The outsiders. The inconvenient ones. The people expected to give endlessly while accepting whatever treatment was handed to us. And now Mia had stepped across that invisible line. Vanessa couldn't handle it. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I simply ended the call. Then I blocked her number. That night Mia stayed over. The next morning became the next night. Then another. 3 days later, everything exploded. A woman from Child Protective Services knocked on my door. For a second, I thought my mother or sister had filed a complaint against me. Instead, the woman introduced herself and asked a surprising question. Is Mia currently staying here? Yes. The woman nodded. She already knew. Apparently, Mia had spoken to her school counselor. Not me. Not Lily. Not another relative. Her counselor. And what she said had been enough to trigger an investigation. The counselor had documented concerns, patterns, comment, behavior, things that sounded insignificant alone, but alarming together. A home visit had already been conducted. Questions had already been asked. Files had already been opened. Vanessa had no idea any of it was happening until investigators arrived. By that afternoon, my inbox contained a message from my mother. Not a text. Not a phone call. An email. A cold, carefully written email. The kind people write when they want their cruelty to sound reasonable. She accused me of destroying the family. She accused me of manipulating Mia. She accused me of turning children against their relatives. Then she ended the message with a sentence that stunned me. We should have cut you off years ago. I read it 3 times. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was honest. For the first time in years, she wasn't pretending. I printed the email. The next day, I handed it to the CPS investigator. The woman read every word, then quietly slipped it into her folder. She asked me how long Mia could stay. As long as she needs. The investigator nodded. Good. Something in her tone told me this situation wasn't ending anytime soon. That weekend, I took both girls to the park. Watching them together felt surreal. For years, adults had tried to create distance between them. Competition, comparison, division. Yet the second those adults disappeared, the girls became inseparable. They raced across playground equipment, shared snacks, invented ridiculous dragon stories. For a few hours, they looked like ordinary children. And maybe that was the saddest part, how rare that had become. When we returned home, a small white box sat on my porch. No return address. No note. Just my name, written across the top. A chill ran through me. Inside was a glitter-covered unicorn cake topper, broken cleanly in half. The same type from the birthday party. I didn't need a signature. I already knew who sent it. Someone wanted me to feel guilty. Someone wanted me to keep playing the game. But something inside me had changed. I wasn't playing anymore. The following Monday, I met with my lawyer. The same lawyer who had helped me untangle my finances from my family months earlier. I carried a thick folder. Years of evidence. Years of memories. Years of things I'd convinced myself weren't important. Now they were. One by one. I laid everything on the table. Screenshots. Emails. Text message. Financial records. Examples of favoritism. Examples of manipulation. Examples of cruelty. Disguised as family tradition. My lawyer read quietly, occasionally making notes, occasionally shaking her head. Then I showed her photographs. One photo stopped her immediately. Lily's 4th birthday. She sat alone with a single cupcake, a tiny candle. No decorations, no banner, no gifts. In the background, Mia opened a mountain of presents. I remembered that day vividly. My mother had called it a joint birthday celebration, then somehow forgot Lily's name on everything. At the time, I'd accepted the explanation. Now, I saw it clearly. Another photograph. Christmas morning. Every child received matching robes, matching slippers, matching stockings. Lily sat on the floor holding discount store socks. The socks I had rushed out and purchased myself after realizing nobody else had included her. My lawyer slowly looked up. Charlotte, she said quietly, do you want to move forward? What does that mean? It means if the investigation continues and Mia remains in your care, we may have grounds to pursue guardianship. The room became very still. Guardianship. The word felt enormous, terrifying, necessary. My lawyer leaned forward. If you do this, your family won't stay quiet. I almost laughed. They never do. That night after Lily went to bed, Mia sat beside me on the couch. She held a small pink journal. Her hands were shaking. I want to show you something. She opened it carefully. Page after page contained handwritten questions. Questions no child should have to ask. Why does Grandma only like one of us? Why does she say Lily is trouble? Why am I not allowed to hug her too much? Why does Mom get angry when I defend her? Every sentence felt like a knife. Not because it surprised me, Because it confirmed everything. Mia had seen it all. For years. She just hadn't known how to explain it. I closed the journal, took a slow breath, then wrapped my arms around her. Neither of us cried. Neither of us spoke. But deep down I knew something important. The truth was finally surfacing. And the people who had spent years hiding behind family loyalty were beginning to lose control. The very next morning my phone rang. An unfamiliar number appeared on the screen. I answered. The voice on the other end belonged neither to Vanessa nor my mother. It belonged to my mother's pastor, and he said my mother wanted to see me. I didn't agree to meet my mother's pastor because I respected my mother. That respect had been gone for a long time. I agreed because I was curious. The pastor sounded genuinely concerned. Kind. Almost uncomfortable. He explained that my mother had been attending church every day for nearly 2 weeks, sitting alone after services, staying long after everyone else had gone home. Eventually, she'd asked him to contact me because she couldn't bring herself to call. Part of me wondered if she was finally ready to tell the truth. Another part already knew better. We met in a small office behind the sanctuary. When I arrived, my mother was already there, perfectly dressed, perfectly composed, like she believed appearances could still save her. The pastor greeted me politely and then excused himself. The moment the door closed, my mother began speaking, not crying, not apologizing, not even pretending. Immediately I knew nothing had changed. She said she was sorry, but not for hurting Lily, not for the birthday party, not for years of favoritism. She was sorry that I had overreacted, sorry that I always took things too personally, sorry that I couldn't let things go. Every sentence felt familiar, the same script she'd used my entire life. The problem was never what happened. The problem was my reaction to it. I sat quietly and listened. For once, I wasn't trying to defend myself. I wasn't trying to fix anything. I was simply observing, almost like watching a stranger. Then she said something that made the room go completely silent. You've always been difficult to love. The words landed harder than the slap Lily had received. Not because they hurt, because they explained everything. Every ignored birthday. Every comparison. Every excuse. Every moment I had spent wondering why I was never enough. For years I believed I had done something wrong. That if I worked harder, gave more, sacrificed more, eventually I'd earn the love that seemed to come so easily for everyone else. Sitting across from her, I finally understood. There had never been anything to earn. She had decided who I was long ago, and nothing I did could change it. I stood up. My mother looked surprised. Maybe she expected an argument. Maybe she expected tears. Maybe she expected another chance. Instead, I calmly picked up my purse. We're done. Her face hardened. You'll regret this. No. I looked directly into her eyes. I already regret how long I stayed. Then I walked out. No dramatic exit. No shouting. No slammed doors. Just a quiet ending. The kind that can't be undone. When I got home, Lily and Mia were sitting at the dining room table, coloring dragons, arguing about whether dragons preferred treasure or cupcakes. Music played softly from a speaker in the kitchen. For a moment, I stood in the doorway watching them. 2 girls who had spent years being pushed into different boxes, different categories, different levels of worth, and yet somehow they had found each other anyway. That was the moment I knew I had made the right choice. Not because I had won, because they were finally safe. The following weeks moved quickly. The CPS investigation continued. More interviews, more documentation, more uncomfortable truths. As details emerged, the picture became impossible to ignore. Patterns that had been dismissed as family quirks suddenly looked very different when written in official reports. My sister was ordered to attend parenting classes. Regular evaluations were scheduled. Recommendations were issued. For the first time in her life, someone outside the family was holding her accountable. She hated it. My mother hated it even more. But neither of them could stop it. Too many people had seen too much. Too many records existed. Too many children had spoken honestly. Eventually, the investigation concluded. The case officially closed. But not before leaving consequences behind. One of those consequences involved a choice. Mia was given the option to return home. Everyone assumed she would. After all, Vanessa was her mother. Her room was there. Her belongings were there. Her entire life was there. But when the question was asked, Mia quietly shook her head. No, just one word. Simple. Certain. Final. I wasn't in the room when she said it, but my lawyer told me afterward. She said there wasn't even hesitation. No uncertainty. No confusion. Just certainty. A certainty that broke my heart. Because no child should know that answer so easily. The legal process that followed took months. Paperwork. Court appearances. Evaluation. Interviews. Endless paperwork again. But eventually, it happened. In March, guardianship was finalized. I became Mia's legal guardian. The day the papers were signed, we celebrated with pizza and ice cream. Nothing fancy. Nothing expensive. Just peace. The kind of peace money can't buy. Lily was thrilled. She immediately started introducing Mia as her sister. Not cousin. Sister. The first time I heard it, I had to turn away for a second, because my eyes suddenly burned. Mia never called me Mom. I never asked her to. She called me Charlotte. Sometimes Rose. A nickname Lily had accidentally given me years ago. That was enough. Love didn't require titles. It required consistency, safety, trust. Things she had spent years searching for. Slowly, our house changed. The tension disappeared. Laughter became normal. The girls filled the walls with drawings, dragon pictures, unicorn sketches, ridiculous family portraits featuring 3 people and at least 2 dragons in every image. The kind of chaos that feels like happiness. Months passed, then a year. My mother never called, never visited, never apologized. Not really. I heard bits and pieces through relatives. Apparently, she told people I had turned everyone against her. Apparently, she still considered herself the victim. Apparently, nothing had changed. And surprisingly, that no longer bothered me. Because closure doesn't come from the person who hurt you. It comes from accepting who they are. One afternoon in June, a card appeared in my mailbox. No return address. No signature. I already knew where it came from. Inside was a photograph. A glitter-covered unicorn cake topper. This one wasn't broken. No message. No explanation. Nothing. Years earlier, I would have stared at that photo for hours, trying to understand what it meant, trying to decode some hidden apology, trying to find closure. Instead, I looked at it for 3 seconds, then dropped it into the trash. Because I didn't need anything from her anymore. Not explanations. Not apologies. Not permission to move on. I already had everything that mattered. That evening, I walked into the kitchen and found Lily and Mia sitting at the table, coloring another dragon, arguing over wing colors, laughing so hard they could barely speak. Sunlight streamed through the windows. Music played softly in the background. For a moment, I simply stood there watching them. And I realized something. The family my mother spent years insisting Lily didn't belong to, it never existed. Not really. Because family isn't determined by blood. It's determined by who protects you when you're vulnerable, who believes you when you're hurting, who chooses you when choosing you costs something. Lily belonged, Mia belonged, and for the first time in my life, so did I.